at paragraph 4, you say, but secondly, we would urge you to stress the fact that you're in charge of an organisation that has, at its heart, the determination to improve people's lives, often the most vulnerable in our society. Indeed, you have obligations in this regard. While the issue being championed by MPs may seem important to them in campaign terms, this pales into insignificance to the bigger social mission of Post Office Limited and your leadership of it, not to mention the literally thousands of people who depend critically on our services. It would be a brave MP who sought to champion one above the other. Was it your view that Post Office's public purpose was more important than the allegations made by subpostmasters that they'd been convicted and imprisoned in prosecutions that relied on data from Horizon that may have been unreliable?
That's not the question that I was actually faced with. Although a number of cases involving criminal convictions had been accepted into the scheme, none of those were taken forward as part of the mediation process.
Well, no, look, what it says is, while the issue being championed by MPs may seem important, one of the issues being championed by MPs was that there may have been unsafe convictions, wasn't it?
Yes.
And so the question is, did you consider that Post Office's public purpose was more important than that issue?
On the basis that I had seen nothing, and the Post Office has seen nothing to suggest that the question of unsafe convictions had any evidence behind them, then I suppose I did at the time feel that.
Was that a commonly held belief within Post Office?
I don't know.
Did Paula Vennells challenge it when she received this briefing?
I can't recall.
Do you think that's keeping an open mind to the allegations?
Well, we had had the cases submitted to us, and it was apparent from our reading of them that although there were some suggestions that Horizon may be problematic, there had not been anything advanced to suggest that Horizon was actually responsible for the losses being complained of. So, to that extent, then, it was important to see it in the context, in that context. I would also add that the scheme admitted 150 applications into its number, which is a relatively small number. 136 were actually taken forward as part of it, the others having been resolved prior to treatment. And in the context of the number of users over the relevant period of the Horizon system, which are 500,000, this represented a very, 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 very small minority of cases. So there was certainly an idea in my mind that in the absence of evidence that Horizon had caused the shortfalls, as far as we could determine at that stage, it was important that we retained our focus on the day-to-day mission, while still absolutely addressing the complaints being made, but it couldn't come at the cost of it.
Can we turn the page, please? You refer at paragraph 5 to the Horizon issue being one we are absolutely willing to entertain. And then at 6, you say, but there must be limits. We cannot accommodate the self-indulgence of a number of malcontents to the continuing detriment of our customers. The tiny minority making allegations, while deserving of respect and due process, cannot be allowed to pollute our public service mission. So when you're referring to the malcontents, are they the people in the mediation scheme?
Well, it's a number of, that was the view of a number of them, as it says there. And looking back on this, I clearly regret the rather florid language I've used. But
why did you use that language?
Well, I think it was born of a sense of frustration rather than anything else. And I'm not seeking to excuse it. It's a poor choice of language, but I think it is explicable in terms of the frustration I was then feeling.
What was the self-indulgence that you were referring to?
Well, I think certainly with the cases that we had in front of us in the scheme, there were, in almost all cases, a very rational and frankly quite mundane explanation for what had transpired in those that didn't rely on, theoretical possibilities which were pretty improbable. I think sort of there was a sense in which, in the absence of evidence, to continue pursuing a line which relied on a theoretical possibility rather than the facts in front of us seemed to me to be somewhat self-indulgent.